Okay, yeah. So welcome to GM number 9. I guess it's number 9, yeah. With the winter storm, we had everything moved. The sign-in link is here, and also in the chat says that make sure you sign in. This is just our mission statement for those who may be unfamiliar with it. And then our social media. And then if you haven't noticed, all our Zoom events have the same meeting ID. So this is handy to like note down if you want it. That way you don't have to keep going to the calendar to find it.
All right, so real quick, before we go to our speaker, we wanted to share some really important information about our officer elections because we are in the application window right now. We can go to the next slide. So the deadline for the application is this Friday, April 23rd at 11:59 p.m. If you have any issues with that, but you really want to submit an application, just reach out to us and we'll make it work. So we have our elected positions, our president, vice president membership, and our vice president external. Those will be decided by vote, and that'll take place, voting will take place April 25th through 27th. So be on the lookout for an online form for that. And then our chair positions include events, cockerel relations, outreach, publicity, sustainability, and finance. Our finance chair is a new position for next year, and we're really excited about that. And for that, you just submit the application that is linked on this slide. We can also send that in the chat. For the elected positions, there's an additional step you have to take, and that's just submitting an online platform, and you email it to YouTube or YouTube Gmail, and all the information is in the application form there. And then for chair positions, there'll be interviews on April 29th and 30th, and that's all.
Okay, so today we're really excited to have a speaker with us. So I'll let her introduce herself, but we have Annette from Marathon. If you want,
that's
I can
right.
stop sharing.
Yeah, I have a really brief PowerPoint. So yeah, my name's Annette Sluder, and I am currently a pipeline operations engineer with Marathon Petroleum. I'm actually located up in North Dakota, so quite a ways from Austin. I moved up here after I graduated from UT in 2009 to take a position with Schlumberger. So on this first slide, I just kind of threw up a very high level overview of my, I guess, work history. I did a couple years with Schlumberger. I did move back to Houston briefly for about a year and a half and worked with a chemical company before coming back to North Dakota in 2014. At the time, I was working for Tesoro Logistics. They were based in San Antonio. I don't know if any of you guys are from San Antonio, but you might have heard of Tesoro. And we were bought out by Marathon Petroleum in 2018. It's all been kind of a whirlwind these last few years. I am at home tonight with my 3-year-old and 1-year-old. My husband had a meeting, so if there's any background noise, I apologize, but hopefully I have them distracted with Paw Patrol right now. So I just wanted to just real briefly talk about what I've done with my chemical engineering degree. I like to tell people that chemical engineering affords you a wide range of possibilities. I've kind of taken it the oil and gas route. There are several other routes people take it, whether it be the chemical industry, whether it be biomedical. There are lots of options with chemical. I also like to tell people that if they do want to get into oil and gas, that chemical engineering is a great option because of all the bits and pieces that we learn. We're not just stuck with the actual reservoir engineering part of it like petroleum engineers are. And so when there is a downturn like we're kind of experiencing right now, we tend to keep our jobs, which is always a plus. So just real quick, I spent a couple years right out of school with Schlumberger doing what's called hydraulic fracturing. And this is a process that occurs after the drilling rig is on a well site and before you actually start pumping oil from the wellhead. And I just have a couple pictures of what a frac site looks like, but this job is very field intensive. It's long hours, and I would work for 2 weeks at a time and then have a week off. And I did that for about 2.5, almost 3 years. My personal life kind of, I guess you could say, it didn't suffer per se since I had that week off, but while I was working, that's what I was doing, was working. But when employers see that you have Schlumberger in your work history, they love it. It's a very strong resume builder. As a field engineer, I was in charge of kind of quality control on this fluid right here. This is called frac fluid. It's what carries the sand down into the wellbore and props open channels for oil to flow through in the future. And it's just a giant, I guess, kind of chem lab all day, every day out there, making sure this stuff is up to par. I also supervised the crew for about 2 years while I was out there. So I had 10 to 12 guys that were more or less working for me under my supervision while I was out there. And it's a very unique experience as a woman, but because we do spend so much time together, we got along really well, and I had very minimal issues being the solo female out there, so to speak. As I mentioned before, I'm up in North Dakota, so you can see we have very nice spring days here on the left, and then on the right, this is a typical winter scene with a chunk of snow. So I kind of laughed when y'all were talking about your winter storm earlier. I know exactly what you experienced. My parents experienced it in Houston, and it didn't sound like fun. Schlumberger also provided a lot of intense training while I was with them. I spent 8 weeks in Russia, actually, my first year working for them, and kind of did a petroleum engineering 101 course, I like to call it. I did a lot of the technical background as far as reservoir engineering goes for 4 weeks. And then we also spent 4 weeks really learning the ins and outs of the equipment that we do use. It was a really cool experience. All the people in this class were from all over the world. They're from Russia, Australia, China, Indonesia, and Libya. So it's a very unique experience after living in North Dakota for a few months to go do that for 8 weeks and then come back to North Dakota. And then just real quick, what I do right now, working for Tesoro/Marathon Petroleum, we have a large pipeline system up here in North Dakota. This red line is what we call the Tesoro High Plains Pipeline, and really we're focused on getting oil from the Bakken, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with oil plays in the U.S., but the Bakken was really booming from about 2009 up until a couple of years ago. And then it kind of leveled out and was a steady producer. And then obviously with the drop in oil prices last year, we've had some wells be shut in, but we're still moving the same amount of crude every day on our pipeline. We're moving it to our refinery, which is down here in Mandan, North Dakota. Just for reference, I'm up here in Williston. So we move it down to this refinery. We also have a large rail terminal here that we ship out oil on rail over to Washington State, where we have another refinery. And then we got a couple other exit points along our system. But my primary responsibility is operations support. Kind of any issues that pop up on a day-to-day basis. If they need any technical input, I'm one of the people that jumps in there. I also take on some small projects. At one point in the last 7 years, I was building entire pipelines from well pads to our main pipeline, but right now I'm doing operations support and then small projects. And then what I really enjoy doing is we have a whole model of our whole pipeline system in a software called Synergy Pipeline Simulator. It's similar to Aspen and HYSIS, which is what we used my senior year at UT. I'm not sure if you guys are still using that. But really, we're taking all the calculations that you guys will learn in Ops 1 and Ops 2, I can't think is what it was called, but as far as can your pump get oil from point A to point B, can it get over the hills and across the landscape, and can other pipelines inject? That's what this whole model shows. And I spend a decent amount of time kind of tweaking that model, making sure it matches what we're actually seeing in the field as far as flow conditions and pressures. And then just seeing, hey, if
I don't know what happened. My phone dropped out. I'm sorry about that. Let me see if my computer audio is working. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. And now I pinned this screen somehow on here. Anyway, that was kind of the last slide I had as far as just pictures of kind of projects that I've worked on in the past in the pipeline. But I do want to say, you know, my job right now is a mix of project management, which is really minimal engineering and more just schedule and money management. And then also this hydraulic modeling, which is really kind of fun to use, what you spend a lot of time on in school in a real world setting. So with that, you guys have any questions about Schlumberger or Marathon or just things you can do with your chemical engineering degree?
I guess I have a question. I was wondering if you like interned before and like how you were able to get the most out of that. If you did, to then go into a full-time job, like what do you recommend to like learn the most you can to be better prepared starting full-time?
Yeah, for sure. So I did a co-op with Emerson Process Management. So that was one semester and one summer. And Emerson is process controls. So I don't know if you guys have taken that class yet, but that's a lot of what they do. They build a software called Delta V that a lot of refineries and chemical plants use to control their processes and operations. I enjoyed that co-op. Honestly, I took that co-op because it was in Austin and I really wanted to stay in Austin. Also, when I was in school from 2005 to 2009, the end of my school time was when the recession hit and jobs were very hard to find. So that was actually the only like relevant internship I had during college. My senior year of high school, I actually was able to do, it was more of a shadowing of an engineer at BP in Houston. My dad worked for BP, so he was able to connect me with that, and that was really helpful. That engineer was actually doing quite a bit of modeling and operations engineering on a offshore platform. So I had minimal idea what was going on at the time as a senior in high school, but yeah, back to Emerson. I learned a lot, but I learned that I did not want to be a process controls engineer. So that was definitely helpful. And it's funny because I interface a lot with one of our controls engineers. And so I kind of have a clue what he's doing, but just a tiny bit because, yeah, it's intense what they do. But I will say that Schlumberger was just kind of an introduction to oil and gas. And after I was done with my 3 years or so there, I definitely, and I could have stayed there longer if I wanted to, but I was just kind of burnt out, to be honest. I just knew that I did want to stay in the industry, and I love being in the industry, and I don't see myself changing anytime soon.
So you said you do a lot of Ops 1 and Ops 2 at your job. Did you ever struggle with, like, as soon as you leave the class, you kind of forget some of the material? Did you struggle like relearning anything?
Yeah, but it's funny because I didn't use any of that for, 3 or 4 years after I got out of school. And then I was able to work with another engineer at our company that he actually built that model that I was talking about from scratch. And so luckily I had a very good mentor to kind of get me back up to speed. He's like, you did this in school, remember? And I was like, yes, I do. So, yeah, I mean, nobody expects you to remember any, I guess, equations or anything from 5 or 6 years ago, but you'll just, being out in the field and being close to the operations on a daily basis, you'll just get to see the real life applications of what you learn, and it's pretty handy.
So you mentioned that you were like a female supervisor at Schlumberger. Do you have any advice for us as women, like going into maybe the oil industry or chemical industry where it's like heavily male dominated, to kind of step up and take that leadership role?
Yeah, for sure. So my biggest piece of advice, male or female, just for engineers in general, especially if you're going to go into industry, is to ask questions from day one to the operators that have been there for 20, 30, 40 years. They're your biggest source of knowledge. And when you as an engineer ask them questions, they're like, all right, this girl, this guy gets it. They want to learn, and I'm willing to help them learn. Whereas if you walk out there day one and say, well, my computer says it should do this, or my book says it should do this, they're not going to be a big fan, and it's going to be a struggle. So that's my number one piece of advice is ask questions. And then number two is just be humble. There's just so much to learn out of school. School gives you a great, I guess, foundation for how to learn and how to interact with each other, how to meet deadlines, how to work as a team. But as far as practical knowledge goes, you're going to learn that on the job. And then from a female perspective, don't be too good to get your hands dirty. And really that goes to engineers too. I've seen lots of male engineers that think they're too good to get their hands dirty. I was showing you those pictures of all the hoses and the iron that were out on those frac jobs. I actually took a hammer and swung it at the unions on the pipes and on the hoses. And yeah, I didn't get very far. The guys were way more efficient at it than me, but I at least put myself out there and said, hey, I'm willing to help. Any questions about motherhood? As you can hear my children screaming in the background.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about how, like, was it going to working at home? Like, did you have to work at home? But it sounds like a lot of the work is very hands-on. I was wondering how you were able to do that online.
Yeah, so actually with this position that I have right now, I've actually been based from home since 2014. And that's just a unique to North Dakota at the time. This company desperately needed engineers. My husband had a great job in Williston, even though none of our offices are here in Williston. And so they said, whatever, we'll give you a pickup, work from home. So I've actually been doing that this whole time, but I go out to the field at least 2 to 3 days a week. And so this last year has been very different though, in the sense that we never have in-person meetings, and I do miss that. Thankfully, my kids' daycare has stayed open, and so I haven't had to work with them at home as much, unless one of them's not feeling great. North Dakota hasn't really been a COVID hotspot. We've all managed to stay healthy, and the daycare stayed open the whole time. And so, yeah, it's been a different year, but we've adjusted. And like I said, I still go to the field at least once a week, and I really like that, unless it's February and it's 40 below, and then I kind of avoid it.
Would you say that your role specifically gives you a pretty good work-life balance? I guess obviously things have changed because of COVID, but maybe pre-COVID or what you expected to go back to.
Yeah. Overall, yes, it does. And that's one of the main reasons why I have stuck with this position. We have our busy times. I definitely have nights where I'm in the field until 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And it happens. And it's okay. Anytime you're dealing with operations, whether it be a plant, refinery, pipeline, whatever, things go right ever. Boring is good, but it's not normal. And so we'll have startups or commissionings and they'll take twice as long. And so, yeah, I've had times where, like my 4th wedding anniversary, I was in the field until midnight. That was not ideal, but it happens. It's a very rare, it's not normal. And luckily my at Marathon, it's more Tesoro's culture, but they're all very understanding of family time, and I was able to have adequate leave with each of my kids, and it's been good.
I guess, could you tell us like what a typical day at your job, maybe before the pandemic was like, and then maybe now, just like for a comparison?
Sure. I would say a typical day is at least over the course of an 8 to 5 day, I have at least 3 to 4 hours that are my own, and probably 3 to 4 hours spent on meetings. Whether it be planning for projects, planning for an outage, looking at problems that are occurring in the field, trying to get the right people on the phone to understand what the problem is. So yeah, my days are pretty much half and half between my time to work on modeling or planning or, gathering costs.
Yes.
Monthly safety meetings with like 40 or 50 other people on our team from all over the state, or technical courses. I've done a couple trainings on different modeling softwares. It varies. I really don't have the same day 2 days in a week.
I was wondering kind of how you ended up settling on oil and gas. Like you mentioned that you didn't go up with Emerson, but how did you kind of know, like coming from a chemie background, that you'd like to pursue oil and gas as a full-time position?
Mostly because my dad was in oil and gas. I knew that it was a very good career to have. He always had good opportunities. He's not an engineer, actually. He was an accountant, and then he was in a supply chain position most of his career with BP. But we got to move around a few times and, see different places. And then he just had a very stable career. And once I worked for Schlumberger for a couple of years, especially while the Bakken, which is the North Dakota oil play, was booming, it was just fun. It was exciting to be a part of it. It was a very historical time. What this region experienced was just, it's probably not going to happen again here. But just the influx of people from all over, and yeah, just the type of people that I interacted with on a daily basis. It was fun. And I feel very, I guess, stable, and I just like stability.
So earlier you're talking about how like sometimes on the field you would have to stay really late. So like what's your favorite chaotic field day story?
Yes. My favorite chaotic field day story. Well, I can tell you just a ridiculous story from a Schlumberger day. So it was a day where we had everything breaking down and we weren't able to run, and we were waiting for a mechanic to come out with some part to fix a truck. And so we just had downtime. So yeah, we were out there and it's the middle of the night, but we had nothing we could do because some truck wasn't working. And you have a group of 10 or 12 guys with nothing to do. It's going to get interesting. And so a couple guys fell asleep in a pickup truck, and two other guys found ratchet straps, just big yellow straps that you use to tether something down onto a trailer. They wrapped them around the pickup, and so the doors wouldn't open, and then knocked on the doors and told them to get out really fast. And yeah, obviously they couldn't get out. So just shenanigans like that would occur with Schlumberger. But as far as pipeline experience and being out late at night, it always is due, it seems like, to a welder not taking a measurement correctly. And when you have a piece of pipe that's supposed to fit in, and then you have a gap this big, you're like, oh my gosh. And then they have to go get another piece of pipe and do it all over again. It's very frustrating because as the project manager, there's literally nothing I can do besides wait for that welder to get his game together. But you got time to hang out with your coworkers and get to know them. I don't know. I just try to always make the best out of any situation. Have you guys had any internships yet? Are you guys mostly underclassmen, or?
I think we're kind of a good mix here. There's two of us are seniors, and then we have several juniors.
Okay.
Okay. First years and sophomores. But yeah,
cool.
I actually didn't do my first internship until my last semester right now with an company.
Yeah.
I had a question. You talked about how you got to move around because your dad was in oil and gas. So do you have plans to travel or move around too?
At this moment, we don't. We're pretty settled into our community here in Williston, which if you had told me I would say that 12 years ago, I would tell you you're nuts. When I graduated in December of 2009. The job market was terrible. I got one other job offer, honestly. And when the Schlumberger offer came through, it said Williston, North Dakota. I was like, I don't even know where that is. I mean, I knew where North Dakota was. I didn't know where Williston was. I knew it was cold. I didn't even know there was oil up here. But a job's a job. That's my other piece of advice. Job's a job, and you got to start somewhere. So, yeah, we really like our community here. I like being in a small town. There's about 50,000 people here. There's no traffic. I've got good friends. We're involved in a good church. And so we just feel really settled right now. But all that to say, and I think 3 to 4 years, I can see us itching to make a change. And whether that be with Marathon, if I'm still with Marathon, or my husband's job, I don't know. We'll see. I'm always open to new opportunities. I will, if anybody offers me a job or contacts me on LinkedIn and just says, hey, I want to talk to you about this opportunity, I always at least have the conversation, because you just don't know until you have the conversation. And so, yeah, I would like to move around a bit and have my kids have that experience. But right now, especially in this time period, I think I'm going to stick with what I have because I know it's good. Anything else?
I had another question, because you said you're from Texas, right?
I'm from Houston. I grew up in Katy.
So is all of your family there, and you're just you and your little family with kids in North Dakota? And what's it like with that whole distance?
Yeah, my parents are still in Houston. And then my husband's from Michigan. We met here working at Schlumberger together, which is not unique for Schlumberger at all. You spend so much time with your coworkers. I have, I think, 3 other friends that were female field engineers that met their husbands at Schlumberger. So anyway, it can be hard, of course. I don't have grandma and grandpa to call last minute if one of my kids are sick. But like I said, we have a really good community, and I do have friends that I can call for that kind of stuff. So we make it work. I'm the type of person that doesn't need to live like down the street from my parents. I'm okay with it. But there are times that I wish that they were within at least a couple hours. So we make it work. We make the best of it. Everybody here in Williston moved here, not everybody, but a lot of my friends moved here in the last 10 years for oil and gas. And so we're from all over, and we're just this hodgepodge of people with all different kinds of backgrounds and stories. And so it's fun. So Shruti, you're from Katy?
I am from Katy. I'm actually here right now.
Nice. Well, I went to Cinco Ranch. I don't know where you went to school.
I went to Cinco Ranch.
Oh my gosh. Small
and my
world.
dad, he actually also worked for Schlumberger.
Of course he did. You know all about it. That's awesome.
Yes, small world.
Oh, nice. And somebody went to Seven Lakes too. Awesome. Yeah, Seven Lakes was not open when I graduated. But yeah, it's nice getting out of, what you know. I don't know. The high school here has about 1,200 kids at most, maybe added. I think 300 kids per class or so. So it's a lot smaller. And yeah, just a totally different environment, but it's nice to get out of the same old routine.
Did you have a bit of a culture shock moving from Austin to like a small town in North Dakota?
Yes. Yes, it was different. What was interesting was during that time period, lots of guys were coming up here to work from Idaho and Utah because the job market was just totally down there. And so, yeah, those guys are just completely different from anybody you'd meet in Austin, especially. But it was good. It was good. Most of them were from a Mormon background, which totally cool, just different way of life, and had, lots of siblings and or lots of children. And I grew up with one brother. So it was a culture shock.
Does
You guys are
anyone have
asking-
any last minute questions before we let Annette go? Okay, well, thank you for speaking with us. I had a good time.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun. If you guys need anything, I don't know, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on there. Shruti has my email address, but I'm excited for you guys and excited for this group. I was somewhat involved in Society of Women Engineers, but not really. So this is cool to see this group come up. And good luck. And I hope that y'all can return to campus sooner than later.
It's looking like they're going to have pretty much 100% in-person fall. So that should be interesting.
That's good. My younger daughter just turned 1. So last year when campus shut down and everything, I was like 37, 38 weeks pregnant. And I was like, well, this is stressful pregnant, but I'm glad I'm not in college right now. But yeah, you guys are doing great. Power through.
Thank you so much for being here and for the interesting conversation and all of your words of wisdom and cheers and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right, so, oh, sorry.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay, so just some upcoming events that we have. On the 23rd, we have a first year chemies social. On the 29th, we have a joint workshop coming up with ASME, AICE, and WME. There's more details to come for that workshop. It'll probably end up being related to summer plans of what to do to kind of have like a productive summer, talking about like jobs, different maybe internships if you are still looking for one, or other things like research and different ways you can be active on and off campus. So yeah, more details will come for that, and be sure to check it out. May 5th, we're gonna have GM number 11 and not on my campus presentation. And we're also gonna have the officer reveal. On May 7th, we're gonna have a picnic on the 6-pack. That's gonna be celebrating basically the last day of classes, making through this hectic year. Kind of just a little celebration. We'll have like food and snacks and stuff like that. So even if you can't stay for a long time, be sure to swing by and pick up like a little baggie of food or whatever we have available for you guys. Make sure to RSVP there so we have an idea. And yeah, so just stay tuned for more info about maybe a semester care package / item. We're planning to do like little finals care packages, but we're still working out the details specifically for that. So stay tuned.
Oh, and for this diversity, equity, inclusion survey, this is something that was sent out, I think, via Canvas, so it should have also ended up in your email. This comes from the Undergraduate Advisory Board, working with Dr. Baldea, who's the undergraduate chair in the department, and as well as the professor for process controls. And it's a pretty thorough survey, so I definitely think we should all try to take it if we have the time, and like share all of our honest opinions, because it's really important, and I think it will lead to some action. So make sure you fill that out. And as per usual, you can submit any ideas for socials via our form. Okay, Becky's not here now, so I'll just share her one update. We want to get a count on the number of bricks that were built in this school year. I know that we've had monthly building socials and everybody's been collecting and building on their own. So we want to get a good count of how many bricks we've built. So just send her a message on Slack with the number of bricks and then any pictures of them that you have. But that's it for that. Oh, and as always, fill out the membership spotlight so we can post you on our social media and show you off, because you are all bright stars. Yep, I think that's it for announcements on this meeting. So thank you all for being here.